Hello and welcome to 11FS Spotlight. I'm David Barton-Grimley. In this show, we shine a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services industry to try to understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think of the future of the industry will look like. On today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined by Abdulaziz Al Jouf, or AA for short, CEO of PayTabs. How are you doing today, AA?
Good. Thank you, David. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you. And on today's show, we're going to talk about AA's career and take a mini deep dive into the world of payments. Right. So let's start off. For those of you who might be unfamiliar, can you give us a 1-minute pitch for PayTabs?
Well, PayTab is a payment processing company. We really try to focus on Middle East, North Africa market, trying to solve problems the market face. We are not trying to pitch the company to fit for global, setup, but more of really trying to understand what's the pain point of individuals and businesses in the region and how to solve their problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us a little bit more about yourself. What led up to where you are now? What's your journey?
Well, it's funny. You can tell I didn't know, but I think I've been starting multiple companies in the last, I would say, 15 years, and one after another. I kind of throw myself into the payment. I started an e-commerce company, and one of the issue I faced with the e-commerce company was payment. And I remember it was 2011, and I can tell you, I know nothing about payment that time. Literally nothing, except the word credit card. And this is really what triggered me to start to figure out what's going on when bank refused to give me a simple requirement, which is a payment channel to accept payment. And I think this is really what drove me to start this. And one of the things I was out there thinking about is if it's my problem, then so many people's problem, and they need the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly as digital commerce goes through the roof over the last few years, right? It's just such a huge issue that needs to get resolved to help the economies, I think, of various different countries grow, actually.
If you look back, I remember when I started, literally there is no e-commerce platform. There is no payment platform in the region. I literally flew from country to another to understand why banks are not giving me the service. When you live in US, then you can just access online, get PayPal online, start to accept payment. But when I moved back to my region, I was really stuck and at surprise. Why nobody's giving me such simple service?
Yeah, I agree. And with that context, what would you say your North Star is? Where do you want to take it over the next few years?
I think the market is big here. Today I just came from a long trip. I've been actually almost to 4 countries, not in 7 days. And shockingly, David, every country has its own unique problems when it comes to payment. When you say point of sale or e-commerce or invoicing or social commerce, and you go to countries like Morocco, where I would say 50% have a card, but I was literally in Sudan and 98% is cash. People carry
Wow.
bags with cash. And you come to a Saudi where I don't need to use cash today. I don't have to use cash. I just can swap my Apple Pay and do the transaction. And I think this is the beauty and excitement about what we do. We're working in Sudan, which have a complete set of solutions that we are providing to the market there. But when you come to Saudi, for example, market, it's completely another challenges and solutions.
And I wonder how you handle that difference, right? Because You started out in Saudi Arabia, right, and the UAE before growing into
Yeah,
markets like Sudan, as you say. They're so
yeah.
fundamentally different. Like, how do you, as a business, it's so interesting to understand how you handle that difference, because then you have to build all sorts of different solutions for different countries, right?
David, I was just an hour ago talking to my chief strategic CFO, and they were just saying exactly the same word. I don't know how I'm handling this so far. So, because I just came from Sudan, I just told him, I mean, man, it's unbelievably exciting and tough because literally there's nothing in there. And I come today in Saudi. I just landed this morning in Saudi, and I told him, "See, I'm not using a single cash today because it's just my phone where I'm transacting." And I think when I look at it from, let's say, a high level overview, what really the market needs is really the set of products or suites. Okay, today I think we got, I would say, nine, and we are about to acquire another six companies, hopefully this year.
Wow.
So what we done really, we built the core payment and built those tax products. I mean, from a digital wallet, from e-invoicing, from social commerce, from point of sale, from a cashier system. And what we do is every market, we went all the way, David, to the switching and acquiring for the bank. Because if you go to some countries, that even the bank don't have the solution for this. So what we do is when we go to a country, for example, like Egypt, I mean, let's take another example like Egypt. Okay, we didn't have the QR in this region as a GCC, Saudi, UAE. But when we went to Egypt, QR was an essential for us to start the market there. And what we done is we take those products and I go myself with the team and literally we sit there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to build the solutions around the need of the market. So you will not be shocked if you see me walking in my jeans and shirt in Sudan, running around shops. I'm serious. I mean, this is the beauty about it, right? We're trying to solve the merchants the macro
Yeah.
and the micro merchants need in those markets. So you literally see me wearing my hat and my cap and my t-shirt running around in Egypt, walking from place to another, just to understand how they do their payment and how they process, who is their bank, which system they are using. And you see some people looking at me with a weird look, say, why are you asking all this question?
Well, because I think it's because you know that if you get the payments right, then that just becomes this huge growth mechanic for the country. You look at a country like Sudan, as you say, micro SMEs, SMEs, the whole economy. Getting a digital ecosystem working is so fundamental.
This is so true. I mean, I can tell you a real story, which is Egypt. I was 3 years ago there. And as I said exactly for you, I was moving from place to another food truck, just checking what's going on. We sat for 1 week. We built the whole solution. I sat with a guy there. I mean, and I said, listen, this is my vision and this is the way we're going to do it. Are you in? And I remember he said, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. And that piece of paper is still with him until today. And today, I think we have around 400,000 merchants in Egypt. I mean, from micro, small merchants. And I believe hopefully this year we're going to clock to be number one in the country in terms of payment processing and GMV.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you're becoming a powerhouse in the region, right? And we heard that you
Well,
recently.
hopefully.
Yeah, well, you're on your way. I mean, you recently acquired Turkey's largest social commerce platform, Payments, and Saudi Arabia's digital
Yeah.
pay. You're talking, I guess, about building almost
Yeah.
a full stack of payment services. I mean, it, it
Indeed.
it
Indeed.
it sounds a little bit like you're moving maybe into the super app territory or potentially launching your own super app. I mean, is that on your radar as well?
Well, I won't tell you the secret, but I think it's really not the super app, but let's call it the merchant app, where the
Yep.
merchant can sign up, can get their KYC done, can they get their banking done, they can get their card to spend, and they can send their invoice, they have their QR. So if you want to call it super app, I mean, it's kind of the merchant app or the merchant ecosystem that we are really driving for. I mean, in the future, I think you want to make it so simple for a merchant from any size to be onboarded. I mean, simply in less than 10 minutes or an hour and just start to process his business and do payment. Payment should not be complicated or complex, I mean, to do business. Sadly, what's happening in the region here is, I mean, you have to worry about the payment as you do worry about your core business, which is should not be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to understand the regulator or government view in some of these different countries, because I'm guessing they all have their own agendas, and some of the countries, I guess, are competing as well against each other. I mean, what are you seeing from regulators to help enable businesses like you, or is it still quite difficult?
Uh, 7 years ago was tough. I mean, doesn't exist. I mean, was even scary if they don't throw you in a gym or in a cell. I mean, but I mean, today, no. I mean, I would say we become kind of the night of payments because countries now are moving towards digitization, moving toward I mean, supporting the digital economy. So we in fact are getting invited by some of the not regulators, but by some of the banks to ask us to come. And when I ask, they say regulators put your name as one of the top in the region that we should be approaching you to do business in the country.
That's really interesting. And what would you like to see, I think, from the regulators over the course of the next few years? Like, what is the biggest tension or challenge that you would face? I don't know, in a country like Sudan, is there a thing that a regulator can do to help unstick some of the problems that you would face?
I think it's a very good question. Uh, what really shifted the digital economy, let's say, or digital payments, or the digitizing the payment, is what happened in India, for example, when the RBI decided
Yeah.
everything gonna be digital. Saudi, when the regulator came and said nobody will renew their trade license if you don't have a point of sale or e-commerce transaction. I think this is what the regulators and other market will need to do to mandate the digitization in those markets. And I've been talking to multiple regulators in multiple countries. They want to do that, but it would take them a bit of time to reach to that point. So if you look at it from a high level, all the regulators wants to be I mean, mandating the digitization, but I mean, not all the country at the same level of I mean, management, right?
Yeah.
Each regulator is managed by different group or different uh, people.
And how does that contrast to other countries and regions like in Europe and the US? Is there anything that you're seeing from some other countries where you're going, yeah, they're absolutely nailing it. That is exactly where as a region we need to be? Or is it in fact the other way? The Middle East and North Africa in some senses might be leading the way.
I will look at it from a different view. I mean, if you come to Europe, I mean, the digitization reach a level of, I would say, maturity in the market. Still, there is cash indeed. But I mean, where you want to be is for me as a parent today is this region. This is where the fun is, right? I mean, if you really want to scale a company, I mean, and the payment, I mean, I can tell you about so many countries I visited in the last 3 years. I mean, I've been to Kurdistan, I've been to Uzbekistan, I've been to those countries where payment even doesn't exist. So underganators see us as kind of heroes. I mean, coming. Of course, the process is not easy, the political process there, but to bring the technology stack and put it in the country and open the box there and just launch all those products. I mean, I'm proud to say we managed to shift or impact markets. I mean, when we open up the our technology. So to answer your question, I think the excitement is really in this region, where we see massive potential coming up. In terms of a payment, this is one. Two, there's a leapfrog in here, right? I mean, if in US or Europe they want to open the QR, for example, it's a bit too late
Yep.
for the QR because the Apple Pay is already in the market. You can go through the tube and just scan I mean, touch your phone or card and you're done, right? So why would you need the QR? But if you go to countries like in Africa or in next to Stan's countries, I mean, literally we're thinking to put the phone number of the shop where he can send the money via USSD. So
It's
the
amazing, isn't it?
creativity is much massive and bigger, and
Yeah.
you are really changing and impacting the markets there.
Yeah, it's such a fundamentally different way. I mean, I travel a hell of a lot for my job, and I see these QR focused almost economies in some way, actually. And my earlier impression of QR codes was back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago, when QR codes first came, and everybody was saying, "Wow, the QR codes are going to be the future," and then it went nowhere, right? And now all of a sudden you hear this explosion of QR codes being just so fundamental to payments and merchants and digitization. It's almost wonderful to see. I'm so curious to talk about the idea of idea generation and organic growth of businesses. I mean, listening to you speak, it really sounds like you are identifying the need in the market. You're almost ahead of where the regulators are and where the competition is in a way. Do you think that's where the best ideas come from, the organic understanding of the need? Is that where you see the sort of the beginning of the entrepreneurial spark?
I think I see all those, I mean, ideas coming up from the Silicon Valley, from Europe, and every market has its own need, right? I mean, I'm sure you met hundreds, thousands of
Yeah,
entrepreneurs. And one advice I give when I mentor, coach, or talk to entrepreneurs, I mean, stop thinking in the sky. Okay, there are so many problems exist in our human nature today in terms of payment or non-payment or
yeah,
e-commerce or business. Just solve those damn problems because this is where the issues and this is where the money and this is where the future and this is where the bright idea is gonna come up. So if you ask me, I mean, we are not doing a rocket science here. I mean, you go to a country like, for example,
yeah.
Sudan or Uzbekistan, and you see that people queuing, okay, to just buy a bread or something. I say, funny. I mean, what can we do to impact this market? And if you go to other market where you say queue of people, I mean, working in the country, sending money to their home family, I mean, what can you do to ease the remittance for them? I mean, this is what entrepreneurs supposed to do, right? Not to think
Yeah.
about, I mean, making a magical solution that nobody can use.
There are enough unmet needs out there in the world and enough
Yeah,
people. Go ahead and meet those
exactly.
needs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, and
100%.
actually, you just answered my last question, so that was brilliant. So okay, everybody, thank you so much. It's coming to the end of the show. Thanks, AA, for joining me. Where
Thank
can
you.
people find out more about you and everything you're up to?
Usually at paytabs.com or in my head most of the time. There are some ideas we keep, I mean, trying and thinking if this is gonna work. I like to trial and test and see which one gonna fit in or not. But
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, I'm accessible. I mean, through my LinkedIn profile most
Awesome.
of the time. If there's an exciting question,
Cool. Right. And that's all the time we have for this week. Make sure you follow 11FS on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all the channels, to stay updated with all the cool stuff we're doing. And if you enjoy our show, do subscribe to the 11FS YouTube channel, where you can also catch up on previous episodes. Have a great week, everyone, and goodbye.